The massive warship, undefeated, floated silently in the darkness of space, its silver hull reflecting the distant starlight. Inside the command center, Admiral Stone stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his tall, metallic-skinned figure casting a long shadow across the polished floor. The room hummed with the quiet efficiency of the galaxy's most advanced technology. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Reed from his monitoring station, his crystalline eyes glowing with excitement. "Long-range scouts have detected something interesting in Sector 7. Stone moved smoothly across the room, his enhanced muscles allowing him to glide rather than walk. Every movement showed the perfect precision that made the Stellar Dominion the most powerful force in known space. "Show me," he commanded. The main screen lit up with images of a blue-green planet, the third one from its yellow star. Data streams scrolled alongside the image, showing atmospheric composition, temperature ranges, and most importantly, clear signs of civilization. "Primitive technology detected," Reed reported, his voice carrying the slight musical tone all Dominion officers had. "They've barely reached their moon. They still use fossil fuels. Their weapons are chemical and nuclear." He said the last words with slight disgust. Stone's silver lips curved into a small smile. In 10,000 years of expansion, the Stellar Dominion had never lost a war. Their bio-enhanced bodies, perfected over millennia, made them practically immortal. Their technology, developed through countless conquests, had no equal. They had subjugated 300 star systems, and each victory had been easier than the last. "What do they call themselves?" Stone asked, studying the planet's continents with mild interest. "They call their planet Earth, Admiral. They call themselves humans." Reed checked another data stream. "They appear to be divided into numerous competing groups. They fight among themselves constantly." Stone nodded. It was always the same. Primitive species wasted their resources fighting each other, making them easy targets for the Dominion's perfectly unified forces. "Send in a stealth team for closer observation. Standard protocol." "Yes, Admiral." Reed paused, then added, "There is one unusual reading, sir. Their communication networks. They're chaotic, but massive. They produce and share an enormous amount of information. Irrelevant." Stone dismissed the observation. "Probably entertainment to keep their masses docile. Prepare the invasion fleet. I want it ready in standard formation within 3 days." As Reed hurried to comply, Stone turned to his personal console and began drafting the standard conquest announcement. It was a formality at this point. No species had ever refused surrender once they understood the Dominion's power. His fingers moved across the holographic keys. "To the leaders of Earth, we are the Stellar Dominion. We have conquered 300 star systems. We have never known defeat. Your technology cannot harm us. Your weapons cannot stop us. Your resistance would be futile. Surrender now, and your species will be permitted to serve the Dominion. Resist, and you will be replaced by more worthy servants." Stone paused, looking at the planet again. Something about it caught his attention. Perhaps it was the way the continents were shaped, or how the clouds moved across its surface. For a brief moment, he felt an unfamiliar sensation, a tiny spark of uncertainty. He dismissed the feeling immediately. He was Admiral Stone of the Stellar Dominion. His body was perfect, his mind enhanced, his ship undefeated. These humans, with their primitive technology and divided nations, could never be a threat. He finished the announcement and sent it to be translated into Earth's major languages. Then he opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Admiral Stone. Prepare for another simple conquest. Victory is assured, as always." As the crew acknowledged his orders, Stone allowed himself to imagine adding Earth to the Dominion's perfect record. Just another primitive world to conquer, just another species to subjugate, just another victory to add to their unbroken streak. He had no way of knowing that he had just started the Dominion's first, last, and only war of survival. Commander Gray's stealth ship landed silently in a forest outside a medium-sized human city. The advanced cloaking technology made the ship invisible not just to eyes, but to all known forms of detection. Gray and his team of 4 observers stepped out, their own personal cloaking fields active. Remember, Gray told his team, "We observe only. No interaction." He checked his scanner, which showed thousands of human life signs in every direction. Split up, standard pattern. Report anything unusual. The aliens moved through the city like ghosts, their perfect bodies allowing them to slip through crowds and leap between buildings without being noticed. Gray himself chose to observe a human military base, expecting to find primitive weapons and basic training exercises. What he found instead made him pause. The humans were practicing something strange. They called it guerrilla warfare. Instead of fighting in proper formation, they practiced hiding, setting traps, and running away. Gray watched as they turned simple household items into weapons and used cheap drones to spy on mock enemies. "Commander," Officer Black's voice came through his comm. "You need to see their entertainment center." Gray moved across the city in seconds, joining Black outside a building filled with games. Inside, humans sat at screens, playing simulations. But these weren't simple battle games. They were complex scenarios about fighting superior forces, about defeating alien invasions, about winning against impossible odds. "This is concerning," Gray muttered. "Commander," another voice, Officer White, called urgently. "Their information network, it's not just for entertainment. They share everything. Weapons designs, battle tactics, scientific discoveries. It's all available to anyone." Gray watched a young human easily access detailed physics equations, military histories, and weapon specifications, all from a small device in their hand. In the Dominion, such information was carefully controlled. Here, it spread like water. "Location check," came Officer Green's voice. "I'm in their learning center. These humans, they're teaching their young ones to question everything, to challenge ideas, to think differently." The final team member, Officer Brown, reported from a human research facility. "Sir, they have multiple competing research teams working on the same problems. They waste resources by duplicating work, but they get results faster this way. They keep trying different approaches until something works." Gray found himself moving faster through the city, gathering more data. Everything he saw challenged Dominion logic. Humans were physically weak, but they built machines to make them stronger. Their technology was primitive, but they improved it at an alarming rate. They fought among themselves constantly, but this fighting had taught them countless ways to wage war. In a public gathering place called a park, Gray watched human children play. They weren't practicing combat moves or studying military doctrine like Dominion children. They were making up new games, changing rules on the spot, adapting and innovating in ways that would be unthinkable in Dominion society. "Return to the ship," Gray ordered his team. "We need to report this immediately." Back aboard their stealth vessel, Gray began his report to Admiral Stone. His fingers hovered over the keys as he struggled to explain what he had seen. How could he make the Admiral understand that these humans were different? That their apparent weakness might be strength, that their chaos might be an advantage. He wrote simply, "Recommend extreme caution. Target species shows unusual adaptability and innovation. Suggest diplomatic approach instead of standard conquest." The response came quickly. Assessment noted. Proceed with standard invasion protocol. Gray stared at the response for a long time. For the first time in his perfect, enhanced life, he felt something new, doubt. He had served in 15 conquests, and every species had fallen easily to Dominion power. But these humans, they were different. As their ship lifted off, Gray looked down at the city below. The humans couldn't detect his ship, but somehow he felt they were ready for it anyway. They had been preparing for this moment for generations, even if they didn't know it. "May the eternal stars help us," he whispered, breaking protocol by speaking a personal thought. We might have finally found our match. Admiral Stone stood before the massive screen in the Undefeated's command center, watching as his message was broadcast to every communication device on Earth. The standard ultimatum had worked perfectly on 300 other worlds. He expected the humans' surrender within hours. "Sir," Lieutenant Reed called out, "we're receiving responses from Earth's governments." Stone smiled. "Display them." The screen filled with a single message, repeated in different languages from different nations. Just 5 words. "We've been waiting for you." Stone's smile faded. This wasn't the fear he expected. This wasn't the panic he had seen hundreds of times before. "Explain," he demanded. Reed's fingers flew across his console. "Sir, they detected our stealth ships 3 weeks ago. They'd been tracking our movements. They knew we were here the entire time." "Impossible." Stone's perfect face showed confusion for the first time in centuries. "Our stealth technology is flawless. No primitive species called." "Admiral," another officer shouted, "Earth's military bases are activating, but not in panic. They're following pre-planned protocols. They had plans ready for this." The main screen showed military units moving with practiced precision, civilians calmly following evacuation routes, politicians from enemy nations suddenly working together. It was as if the humans had rehearsed this moment. "Show me their global communication network," Stone ordered. The screen filled with millions of data points. Humans weren't just sharing information. They were organized. Groups called Reddit and Twitter were already analyzing the Dominion's message, finding patterns, suggesting weaknesses. Something called YouTube was full of videos explaining possible alien technology and how to fight it. "Sir," Reed's voice shook slightly, "you need to see this." The screen showed human entertainment from the last 100 years. Movies, books, games, thousands of stories about aliens invading Earth. Stories where humans won. Stories where they beat stronger enemies. Stories that had trained them to think about this very moment. "Check their military records," Stone commanded. "Already done, sir." They'd been running simulations for decades. Every major military has plans for alien invasion. They even have something called Project Blue Book that studied us while we studied them. Stone walked to his command chair, his perfect posture hiding his growing concern. "They can't possibly hope to resist. Show them our fleet." The Dominion fleet decloaked, 10,000 ships appearing in Earth's sky like new stars. It was a sight that had made hundreds of species surrender instantly. The humans responded by launching satellites. Not weapons, just simple recording devices. They wanted to study the ships, learn from them, understand them. "Message from Earth's United Defense Council," Reed announced. The screen showed a human general speaking calmly. "To the Stellar Dominion. We've monitored your assessment of Earth. We've studied your stealth ships. We've analyzed your message. You've conquered 300 worlds because they were like you. Predictable, unchanging, afraid to fail. We are not like you. We've spent our history fighting, failing, learning, and adapting. Every war movie, every science fiction story, every game about alien invasion wasn't just entertainment. It was preparation. Your ultimatum asks us to surrender or be destroyed. We have a different proposal. Leave now or learn why humans are the species that writes stories about beating impossible odds." Stone stood motionless, processing this response. In all his centuries of conquest, no species had ever spoken to the Dominion this way. They faced aliens who didn't fear them, who had prepared for them, who seemed almost eager to fight them. "Launch the first wave," Stone ordered, his voice carrying less certainty than usual. "Show them why we're called invincible." As the Dominion ships moved into attack formation, Earth's defenders took their positions, but they weren't following any standard military doctrine. They were doing something the Dominion had never seen before. They were improvising. The first wave of Dominion ships descended through Earth's atmosphere in perfect formation. Their silver hulls gleamed in the sunlight as they approached their primary target, a military base in what humans called North America. Admiral Stone watched from the undefeated, expecting the usual quick victory. Enemy forces detected. Lieutenant Reed announced. Primitive aircraft approaching. Projectile weapons only. Stone nodded. Proceed with standard elimination pattern. The human jets came straight at the Dominion ships, firing missiles that couldn't possibly penetrate their advanced shields. Stone allowed himself a small smile. Then something unexpected happened. Sir, Reed's voice rose in alarm. The missiles, they're not exploding on our shields. They're studying them. The human weapons weren't trying to break through. They were scanning the shield frequencies, gathering data, learning. Each missile that hit sent information back to Earth's defense networks. Multiple small objects approaching from the surface, another officer reported. Stone looked closer. Thousands of civilian drones, modified with simple cameras and sensors, swarmed around his ships. They weren't attacking. They were recording, analyzing, understanding. This is not standard resistance protocol, Stone muttered. Suddenly, a second wave of human aircraft appeared. Their missiles were different now, modified in the few minutes since the first attack. They had learned from the first wave's failure. Shield breach on Destroyer 7. Reed shouted. How did they adapt so quickly? Stone watched in disbelief as humans shared their discoveries instantly across their global network. Every failed attack taught them something new. Every destroyed human weapon provided data for the next one. Sir, ground forces are doing something strange, Reed reported. They're laughing. The screen showed human soldiers watching the battle, not with fear, but with excitement. They were treating this like a puzzle to solve, a challenge to overcome. Their communications were filled with references to something called Independence Day, and phrases like, "Welcome to Earth." "Launch walker units," Stone commanded. The Dominion's massive ground forces, towering mechanical warriors, dropped from the ships. They had crushed armies on countless worlds. The humans responded with something that made no sense. They retreated, not in panic, but in a way that drew the walkers into cities, into forests, into places where their size worked against them. "Sir, we're losing walker units," an officer called out. "Humans are using their own infrastructure as weapons. They collapsed a bridge under Unit 3. They tangled Unit 7 in something called power lines. They're not fighting fair." "Of course they're not fighting fair," Commander Gray's voice came from his observation post. "They never fight fair. That's why they're winning." Stone watched as his perfect invasion force faced something they'd never trained for: creativity. Humans turned their own civilian technology against the Dominion. They used social media to coordinate global resistance. They adapted their weapons in real time, learning from each failure. "Pull back the first wave," Stone ordered. "Regroup and—" "Sir, detecting energy readings from the lunar surface." The moon. While the Dominion focused on Earth, humans had activated something on their moon, a weapon they'd built in secret, disguised as a research station. It fired, not at the Dominion ships, but into space around them. "They're not trying to hit us," Gray realized. "They're mapping our fleet's position, learning our numbers, our patterns." Stone stood in silence as reports of losses came in. For the first time in the Dominion's history, a first wave had failed. Their perfect record was broken. Their invincible reputation shattered. "How?" he whispered. "How can they be so quick to adapt?" On his screen, human networks buzzed with activity. They weren't celebrating yet. They were learning, planning, preparing for Wave 2. They were enjoying this. "Send in the second wave," Stone ordered, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "And prepare new tactics. The standard approach isn't working." The Dominion was about to learn a harsh lesson. Humans didn't just want to survive this invasion. They wanted to learn from it. Admiral Stone sat in his private chamber aboard the Undefeated, watching recordings of human battles. Not just their fights against his forces, but their entire military history. With each viewing, his perfect face showed more concern. "Show me their healing process again," he commanded the computer. The screen displayed images of injured human soldiers. Their bodies, so fragile compared to Dominion warriors, should have taken months to heal. Instead, broken bones mended in weeks. Wounds closed in days. Their bodies worked faster than any species the Dominion had encountered. "Sir," Lieutenant Reed's voice came through the comm. "We've analyzed their technology development since first contact. You need to see this." The display switched to show human weapons. In just 3 days of fighting, they had already copied elements of Dominion shield technology. Their primitive projectile weapons now carried energy fields. Their simple aircraft had basic cloaking systems. How are they learning so fast? Stone wondered aloud, breaking protocol again. The humans weren't just copying Dominion technology. They were improving it, finding ways to make it work with their existing weapons. Commander Gray entered the chamber, his usual perfect posture showing signs of fatigue. "Admiral, I finished my analysis of human entertainment media. It's worse than we thought." The screen filled with scenes from thousands of human stories, movies about aliens invading Earth, books about fighting superior forces, games about surviving against impossible odds. But these weren't just stories. They were battle plans prepared years in advance. They'd been practicing for this moment their entire lives, Gray explained. Every time they imagined fighting aliens, they were actually preparing to fight us. They thought of solutions to problems we didn't even know existed. Stone stood and walked to the window, watching Earth rotate below. "Show me their global response again." The display showed how humans shared information instantly across their planet. When Dominion forces destroyed a city, humans didn't panic. They learned. They posted videos showing weak points in Dominion armor. They shared tips about predicting Dominion attack patterns. They made jokes about the invasion, keeping their spirits high. "Sir," Reed's voice came again, "we've lost another production ship. The humans. They're using our own automated systems against us. They've figured out how to hack our simple worker drones." Stone turned to Gray. "How? How can they understand our technology so quickly?" "Because they're used to understanding new things," Gray replied. "Look at their history. Every time they face a new challenge, they adapt. Every time they fail, they learn. Their bodies aren't perfect like ours, so they learn to heal faster. Their technology isn't advanced like ours, so they learn to improve quickly." The screen showed more human victories. A Dominion Walker unit taken down by simple construction equipment. A shield generator disabled by a computer virus written by human teenagers. A stealth ship detected by technology meant for watching weather. "We thought they were primitive because they still fight among themselves," Gray continued. "But those fights taught them endless ways to win. We thought they were weak because their bodies break easily. But that weakness made them stronger." Stone watched as another Dominion ship fell to human weapons. "We've never lost before. We don't know how to handle defeat." "Exactly," Gray said quietly. "That's why they're beating us. They've lost thousands of times. Each loss taught them something new. We made ourselves perfect, unchanging. They made themselves adaptable, always learning." The chamber fell silent as Stone processed this truth. His species had spent 10,000 years becoming invincible. Humans had spent their history learning how to defeat the invincible. "Send a message to the fleet," Stone ordered. "All units prepare for new tactical doctrine. We can't fight them the old way anymore." But as he gave the order, Stone wondered if it was already too late. The Dominion was just learning how to adapt. Humans had been doing it their entire existence. Captain Tom Miller stood in Earth's Combined Defense Center, looking at the holographic display of the battle. Around him, screens showed Dominion ships moving in their usual perfect formations. But this time, something was different. This time, humanity had a plan. "All units in position," his communications officer reported. "Everyone knows their part." Miller nodded. In the week since the invasion began, humans had learned more about space warfare than they had in all their history. Now it was time to use that knowledge in a way only humans could think of. "Send the signal," Miller ordered. "Operation Chaos begins now." Across the globe, human forces launched what looked like a desperate, disorganized attack. Ships flew in random patterns. Ground units moved without clear purpose. To the Dominion's tactical computers, it appeared that Earth's military had finally broken. Aboard the Undefeated, Admiral Stone watched with suspicion. "This makes no sense," he said. "Their attacks show no logic, no pattern." "Sir," Lieutenant Reed called out, "our systems can't predict their movements. There's no strategic value to their targets. They're not following any known military doctrine." That's when Stone realized his mistake. "Because they're not supposed to make sense," he whispered. Pull back now." But it was too late. The chaos was the strategy. Human ships deliberately crashed through Dominion shield harmonics, sacrificing themselves but gathering crucial data. Ground forces fired in seemingly random directions, but each shot mapped more of the Dominion's defenses. Even civilian networks joined in, overwhelming Dominion communication systems with millions of random signals. "They're not trying to win conventionally," Commander Gray realized, watching from his observation post. "They're making it impossible for us to use our perfect tactics against them." The Dominion fleet tried to adjust, but their ships could only follow pre-programmed patterns. Their crews, trained to execute flawless battle plans, didn't know how to handle enemies who didn't fight logically. Miller watched as the Dominion formations began to break. "Phase 2, he ordered. "Release the virus." Across Earth's networks, millions of computers sent simple code to the Dominion ships. Not complex enough to hack their advanced systems, but enough to make their tactical computers try to find patterns in the chaos. The more they tried to analyze the random attacks, the more their systems slowed down. "Our computers are failing," Reed reported frantically. "They're trying to calculate too many possible strategies at once." Stone watched in horror as his perfect fleet fell into disarray. The humans hadn't tried to defeat his technology. They had turned its perfection against itself. His ships, programmed to find and counter enemy patterns, were overwhelmed by attacks that deliberately had no pattern. "Launch the final wave," Miller commanded. Now Earth's forces attacked with real purpose. They had learned the Dominion's weaknesses, their rigid thinking, their over-reliance on patterns, their inability to improvise. Human ships struck from impossible angles. Ground forces used tactics that no sane military would attempt. "They're inside our command structure," Stone realized too late. "They're not fighting our ships. They're fighting the way we think." The Dominion's undefeated fleet faced something they had never trained for, an enemy who turned chaos into a weapon. Their perfect formations shattered. Their flawless battle plans fell apart. Their invincible reputation crumbled. Miller allowed himself a small smile as the Dominion ships began to retreat. Humanity hadn't won with superior technology or stronger weapons. They had won by being what they had always been: unpredictable, adaptable, and just a little bit crazy. "Send a message to all Earth forces," he ordered. "The tide has turned. Now we show them why you should never underestimate human creativity." In space above Earth, the mighty Dominion fleet did something they had never done before. They ran from a fight they couldn't understand. Admiral Stone stood before the Earth's United Defense Council, something no Dominion leader had ever done before: accepting defeat. The room was quiet, filled with both human and Dominion representatives. His perfect posture remained, but his face showed something new: respect. "The Stellar Dominion," he began, his voice carrying across the chamber, "offers terms for peace." Captain Miller, sitting at the human side of the table, exchanged glances with his colleagues. Just 2 weeks ago, the Dominion had demanded Earth's surrender. Now they were the ones seeking terms. "We're listening," Miller said simply. Stone activated a holographic display showing the Dominion's vast empire. In 300 conquests, we have never negotiated. We have never compromised. We have never. He paused, finding the right word. Learned. Commander Gray stepped forward from his position behind Stone. We discovered something during this conflict. Something that changes everything we thought we knew about strength. The display shifted to show scenes from the battle. Humans using simple technology in creative ways. Adapting Dominion systems. Turning chaos into strategy. Your species, Gray continued, does in days what takes others centuries. You learn. You adapt. You improve. This is a power we never understood until now. Stone nodded. We offer not just peace, but partnership. We want to learn from you, as you have learned from us. The human leaders looked surprised. They had expected surrender terms, not an offer of alliance. Miller leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing? Exchange programs, Stone explained. Your scientists working with our technology. Our warriors learning your adaptive tactics. Shared knowledge, shared growth, shared future. A smile crossed Miller's face. You want us to teach you how to be more human. We want you to teach us how to be less perfect, Gray answered. Perfect is unchanging. Perfect cannot improve. Perfect, we learned, is a weakness. The human leaders discussed among themselves. Then Miller spoke again. And what about the other worlds in your empire? The 300 you conquered? Stone's face showed something that would have been impossible 2 weeks ago. Embarrassment. We would appreciate humanity's help in establishing better relationships with them. Perhaps your species could teach us all how to adapt. A peace built on learning from each other, Miller mused. That's very human of you. For the first time in recorded history, a Dominion admiral smiled genuinely. We are trying to be less perfect, Stone said. It is surprisingly liberating. The peace treaty was signed that day. Not a document of surrender, but a partnership agreement. Humans would help the Dominion learn to be more flexible, more creative, more willing to change. In return, the Dominion would share their advanced technology, helping humanity reach the stars. Later that evening, Stone stood at a window in the council building, watching human children play in a park below. They were inventing a new game, changing the rules as they went along. I still don't understand how they do that, he said to Gray, who stood beside him. Make up new things so easily. Perhaps that's the point, Gray replied. Not understanding, but being willing to learn. That's what makes them special. Stone pulled out his personal device and began writing a new addition to the Dominion's military doctrine. He titled it, The Human Factor, Why Perfect Isn't Always Better. As he wrote, he could hear the children laughing below, their game becoming more complex and chaotic with each passing minute. For the first time in his long life, he found himself wanting to join in, to try something new, to risk being less than perfect. The Invincible Aliens had lost their first war, but they had gained something far more valuable, the ability to change, to grow, to learn. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, 300 worlds waited to learn this lesson too. Perfect, it turned out, was just the beginning.